Hey guys, Spirit of the Lie here. In this video, we're going to be taking a first look at the newly announced AoE2 DLC called Chronicles Battle for Greece. I've had a few days of early access to check it out, and I'm honestly loving it so far, though it's really unlike any DLC we've had before. So in this video, we're going to go over what it is in some detail. First off, if you've seen my videos about the Rome at War mod, or have any experience with that, you'll be a step ahead, as it borrows heavily from that, and those creators are actually directly involved with the creation of this DLC, which focuses on the conflict between ancient Greece and Persia. The devs heard you guys wanted new Persian architecture, so here it is. This is going to be a basically self-contained game separate from regular AoE2, and will be a new addition to the left sidebar. At this point, it kind of feels like AoE2 has fully absorbed AoE1 and is now the place that new ancient era content is going to be coming out. Though to be clear, this is not AoE1, and instead more like an AoE2 overhaul mod. One interesting aspect of this as well is this is made by the Capture Age team as well as the Rome at War creators, as presumably a lot of the Forgotten Empires staff who typically create new DLCs were focusing on Asian mythology this year. I even have it on good authority that my coverage of the Rome at War mod actually contributed to kickstarting this whole DLC, so on a more personal level, I'm very happy to see how well it's turned out. As for what is contained in the DLC, the major focus is a 21 mission campaign, covering about a 100-year span from the perspectives of the Achaemenid Persians, basically from Darius to Xerxes if you know your Persian history, with then parts of the story played from the perspective of Athens and Sparta, telling the long interconnected story of those three during this time period. I'm not allowed to show anything from the campaign other than the main screen, but one thing I think players are going to love is how they're doing the intro cinematics. I had to IR winner my way through the campaign just to watch it as a movie the first time, and that in itself was a great experience. Another cool feature is decisions you make will carry over and affect later missions, though again I can't say any more, and I'm probably already pushing what I'm allowed to. Like I said, you have the Achaemenid Persians, Athens, and Sparta as the three civilizations that are new in the DLC, though the fact this is all set at least 1,000 years before the start of the AoE2 timeframe might set off some alarm bells about Spartans using knights and trebuchets or being up against Spanish conquistadors. But as you can probably see in the single-player footage in the background, a lot of things in the tech tree are redone when you're in the DLC, either when playing the Grand Campaign versus the AI or other players unranked online. Fundamentally, the tech tree is mostly the same at its core, and the stats are the same as usual, but units are reskinned with something more time period appropriate. Instead of archers upgrading to crossbows in the Third Age, for example, you instead just have a more advanced archer. And instead of the hand cannoneer with its anti-pierce armor, anti-infantry role, that's now played by a non-gunpowder unit. There are some totally new innovations though, like a hoplite unit for the Greeks at the barracks, where hoplites pump up each other's melee armor, and there's also a new chariot unit that's an anti-infantry cavalry, which is pretty nice as both these Spartans and Athenians feel very infantry heavy. There are some cute things in the tech tree as well, with nice details like for example ballistics is now called target practice, which actually makes a lot more sense, chemistry is now flaming arrows, and the monastery has been almost completely overhauled as the temple, with more period-specific names and icons. Hex almost always do the same thing as in regular AoE2, but it's just a bit more immersive when you're playing for this different time period. My two favorite changes though are first the trebuchet is replaced by a unit that just looks awesome, though for gameplay purposes it's still functionally the regular trebuchet. My other favorite change is something imported from the Rome at War mod, where in the 3rd and 4th Age you have two unique techs to choose from, and can only pick one from each. To take Spartans as an example, in the 3rd Age you can either research a unique tech for spearmen, skirmishers, and villagers to train 50% faster to go for spamming trash and supercharging the end of your boom. Or instead you can research the alternative tech to pump up your hoplites and ramming ships attack in large groups to go for more of a unit quality approach. In Imperial Age, you then choose between infantry taking less bonus damage or your warships being created faster and castles generating a passive trickle of gold, and I always like this idea of choice in the Rome at War mod. That said, with all the redone graphics, I do have to wonder if there might be some readability issues with how many different infantry units there are, as it's not just 3 lines at the barracks, but each civilization's unique unit is also infantry. Plus, Spartans get an extra general unit from the town center, while upgraded units can also look quite a bit different from the ones that came before them. It's just a lot of different looking infantry, and on the one hand adds visual flavor, and there is often a one-to-one connection with AoE2 units, but again it's just a lot of new skins to learn and recognize. That said, 21 campaign missions jumping between civs gives a lot of practice, and over the 20 hours or however long it takes to play is probably plenty of time to get accustomed to them. Something else that has a bit of a learning curve is then the overhaul they've made to water. The first and very obvious major difference is there are now two types of docks, the more economically focused port and the military focused shipyard. I don't want to get too bogged down in the details, but basically you have these same 4 major ship lines from AoE2 with a galley-style ship, a fire ship, a demo ship, and a basically reskinned cannon galleon, but then adds in a new melee unit. There's also an onager line that does what it sounds like, and will be familiar to people that have used the droman in AoE2. Water is definitely more complicated in the DLC than the regular spam of fire ships or galleons, and is another thing that'll take some experimentation to figure out, but I would say makes water engagements in the campaign a lot more interesting and strategic. If you've seen the way that water is handled in the Rome at War mod though, I will say it's not that complicated, as I think that had 10 or 11 types of warships, and that was reined into something more manageable. When in doubt, just make 5 of everything and attack move. Moving on, another cool mechanic is your town centers can now be specialized. Athenians in particular have a bonus to unlock this earlier, but basically their town centers collectively can be given an economic, archer/naval, or melee unit specialty, providing a passive boost to nearby units or buildings. All 3 civs have different spins on this idea, and it adds some fun depth and decisions you can make depending on the situation, with a small cost to switch between them. For the Achaemenids as another example, in the Third Age they can upgrade each town center with 225 stone to give them 50% more HP, double the attack, and boost the attack rate of your nearby units, though it has a trade-off that you then can't make it an economic town center, which gives nearby villagers plus 15% collection speed. So the decision can actually be pretty impactful, and having multiple town centers is, I'd say, even better than usual in the DLC. There's also a new antiquity mode option in the game settings, which has 2 effects. The first is it generates oysters on the map, which are just like shorefish and can be collected by villagers or fishing ships, but generate gold instead of food. The other effect is called wood trading, where if you're trading on water, you can decide what percentage of trade income you want to be gold and what percentage to be wood, basically ensuring you never run out of a source of wood on island maps. So just to recap, this is a separate game within AoE2 for the most part, with the campaign being, I'd say, the main draw, and it was explained to those of us with early access as a primarily single-player focused DLC, with the option to play multiplayer unranked, which I actually suspect most people aren't going to do outside of the first month. The tab on the left being called Chronicles instead of showcasing the Battle for Greece name prominently also heavily implies to me they might be considering adding to this over time if it's well received, especially given it's a separate team entirely from the usual DLCs. I get why they wouldn't go straight for Rome again out of the gate, but I can definitely imagine a Rome and Carthage DLC with the Punic War campaign as a natural extension to this. Maybe if you own the Roman and Greek DLC, it could unlock a couple of extra missions for the Roman conquest of Greece. I just see a ton of potential in this for people who like ancient history and campaigns, but for whom AoE1 never quite landed, and maybe feels too dated or different. Unfortunately, we're specifically told we can't share anything about the campaigns yet, which ultimately is the main focus of the DLC. The civs being available in single player and unranked seems almost like an afterthought for people who are really excited to play them more. And while the Romans in AoE2 were originally pitched the same way and end up being absorbed into the civ roster and ranked, I don't see any chance of that happening with this DLC. That said, I'm loving what I've gotten to experience of it so far, and I'll be deep diving some aspects of it on the channel, partly just to cover it for you guys and give you a better sense of what's in it, but also because some of the mechanics it introduces might be worth considering incorporating into regular AoE2 with some refinements, even if the civilizations themselves wouldn't make sense. As for a release timeline, I haven't seen a date as of making this video, but my guess would be early November. There also seems to be a new patch tied with this DLC having some balance changes for AoE2 as well, and whether you're interested in the DLC or not, there's definitely stuff to look forward to. That'll do it for this one though. Hopefully this gave a bit of an idea of what to expect from the upcoming DLC, and alleviate any fears we'll be getting Spartans versus Spanish conquistadors on the ladder, which is definitely not going to be the case. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.